If you're anything like me, you refuse to be held back not by time, not by expectations, and not by needlessly throwing money away into the pockets of big wireless. Thankfully, there's a better way with Consumer Cellular. Consumer Cellular offers the same fast, reliable, nationwide coverage as big wireless without the big wireless cost. And they don't surprise you with hidden fees or confusing long-term contracts. For a limited time, you can sign up for Consumer Cellular and save $50 with promo code TED50.
Visit consumercellular.com/TED50 or call 1-888-FREEDOM and mention promo code TED50.
Terms and conditions apply.
How's Mary?
Mary is fantastic.
Give her my love.
I will. And she to you, as she said to me, he's a wonder. He is a wonder.
Clifford loved her first.
That in our house, not just our household. Mary's son, Charlie, who you know, right? Who's off being a director and incredibly bright and all of that. He and his friends love that movie more than just about anything.
It became the strangest thing, how culty that's become.
Yeah. Okay, I've had the best time the last day and a half, 2 days, doing research at first, but then I grabbed your book that I guess was done
2014.
Yeah. And started reading. And I've always had you, this is my bad, not yours, on this kind of comedic genius pedestal. And then reading, you're still there, but reading the book, you are an amazing man. You really are. Your story, what you put out in your book, I really encourage anybody to read it. It is, how you all deal with loss and fun, your whole family. Anyway, I'm rambling.
It's a funny family.
It is a funny family.
It is a funny family.
But really, it sets you up for life, that determination to be positive, use humor. Am I in the ballpark?
I think, yes. It's very interesting about, any kind of loss or tragedy that happens in your life, why one either becomes defeated and scarred and branded for life by it, or empowered. I mean, I lost my brother at 12, my mother at 17, my father at 20. But at 20, I knew something about loss that no one I knew at 20 knew about. So I did have a leg up, and it made me, I think, freer on stage. I'd never cared less whether audiences particularly liked me. I didn't know them. So it made me not worried about being, judged by the admiration of strangers. And I think as an artist, it makes you liberated. So somehow I think there's a yin for a yang, and the positive element of that tragedy was to be liberated.
Yeah. I have to say that is, as a performer, it's something I struggle with, performer, actor.
Oh, I know. I've seen your work.
Okay. Keep score over there, will you please? That's one. Yeah, no, I do. I think most people do. The fear of failure or what will people think. And I remember Jimmy Burrows, who directed Cheers, and Jimmy.
Yes, directed The Associates, my short-lived series in '79.
That's right. He used to yell at me if I came up to a joke or a bit or a physical bit that he had given me, and he could see in my eyes that I thought this may not work or I may not be able to pull this off, and I'd bail. And he'd get so pissed. It's like, give it a shot.
I can't imagine.
Chance.
It's so bizarre. Well, of course, I'm just seeing it as a fan. But Cheers was such a brilliant show to me, and I can't imagine any one of you didn't have this unbelievable confidence to proceed, because everything seems so specific in front of an audience,
Yeah.
It wasn't like take number 25.
No. It was in the 9th, 10th, 11th season, because we just didn't learn lines. And it was just,
It's true.
The audience loved watching us fuck up. But in the beginning, it was like doing a play. And because the set was such, you could do a play. You could do a 5-minute scene and pull it off.
Yeah. Well, I worked with Jimmy Burrows and the Associates, and that was Jim Brooks at the time had a 2-series deal with Paramount. And the first one, 78, launched, was Taxi. And then 79 was The Associates. And it was a great show, but it was filmed. So therefore, they were really shooting it like a movie, you know, a little play. And I remember we went to a filming of Taxi, and someone screwed up and stopped. And I remember Joe Regalbuto and I turned to each other and went, oh, thank God. Because we were so scared,
Right.
the idea of what if we screw up? And then we realized everyone screws up.
Can you still hear in Jimmy's voice, you'd screw up and ruin the setup for the joke, and you'd hear, ah, he'd be really loud and make this noise so the audience couldn't hear you.
Well, then I was also hearing James Brooks going, You hear it all throughout Mary Tyler Moore. Because Jim wouldn't laugh at the lines. He knew the lines. He'd laugh at new attitude you were introducing.
Right. Jimmy also used to laugh during rehearsals to get us used to, hey, don't speed through this moment. This will be a joke. Inevitably, he was right.
Yeah.
And let's talk, speaking of balls of steel.
Yes.
I read that in your book. Who told you you had balls of steel? Stephen Colbert? No, somebody did early on.
I can't remember.
Anyway.
Maybe John Candy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah.
To me is like one of the most perfectly designed characters for you, Marty, because you have this, there are jokes that are character jokes that are meant to be kind of lame so that your fellow friends can ridicule or mock or roll their eyes. But they might not be designed, you know, it's like you have freedom to do a bad joke and get a huge laugh, or an astoundingly brilliant joke that is just you, Marty, being funny.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
It does.
It feels like Johnny Carson used to get more play out of a bad joke sometimes.
Oh my God. He start dun dun dun, he just, dance. And no, I think that, a lot of, Steve and I have been doing these live shows for years now, and together, and a lot of it is us insulting each other. And so they took some of that element to where we're constantly, the two characters, Charles and Oliver, are ragging on each other. And there are jokes that fail, and there are jokes that deliberately fail. It's very, very, very great writing in that show, which is, as you know, the gimmick of any successful series.
Do you have anything to do with the writing? Or
no, not at all. Steve does.
Steve.
I will add, things, a joke here or there, but mainly when I see it, they've not used it. They've gone with their own writing, as they should.
Do you do table reads?
No. We do Zoom reads. It started in COVID.
Right.
We started shooting in 2020 in December. So COVID was still raging, and people were in masks and shields, and the cinematographer had to stay in his shield. I don't know how he was doing it. And so we would read, and then I'm an executive producer, so we would give notes and thoughts on the script and what didn't seem appropriate. I'd never want to swear in front of Selena's character because I wouldn't do that thing.
Right.
And so it just continued to do Zoom table reads, made it easier.
I find it scary when you're doing one-camera comedy, because you don't, as opposed to three-camera live audience, you're told right away, this is funny, this is not.
Right.
And you respond accordingly. Writers on the spot will change the line to make it funny. Whereas you don't really know until you get in the editing room.
Yeah, but I always think, that what I like to do is give a wide range of colors because they're going to figure it out when I'm not there. They're going to figure it in an edit room, and they're going to say, gee, do we have a smaller take? Do we have a bigger take? I have made movies where by week 2 know this film will not work because the director is a moron.
Right.
But my gimmick is to make everyone love me, and then to weasel as many takes as I can with as wide a range of small, big, subtle, clown. And I'll go up to the director. Oh, can I have one more take? and he'll say, well, should we give Marty a freedom take? Because, you know, I've made everyone love me. And now I get my freedom take and I weasel another take. And then I go home in the ride and I think, he'll pick the wrong one because he's a moron. But I'm going to toast myself with a little champagne tonight because I did all I could do.
Yeah.
You know, it's like even with a talk show, I will over-prepare in a preposterous way, send in 15 pages, you know. And then if, as it turns out, I go out and let's say the host is not in a great space or I'm not in a great space in the moment, I go, God bless me, I did everything I could do.
To prepare.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the key. Practice.
Yeah.
So do you write, when you go on a talk show, do you write out, you know what your jokes or your fun places are?
And what I do is, then the gimmick is to, I've used gimmick, by the way, about 100 times. Then the ploy is to make it all look like you're improvising.
Right. But you have given them the lead-ins to...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's so smart.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I remember the first time I was doing, I think one of the first American talk shows, because I'm Canadian, was like Dave Letterman had just started his show in '82, the 12:30 show. And I was going to go on the show and I was thinking, now, what am I... And I thought, I think what I have to shoot for is appearing like I am really loose at a dinner party. And I'm telling a story at a dinner party. And I'm like an hour into the dinner and I've had a couple of wines and I'm saying, oh, I'll tell you the story about following Tony Bennett.
Right.
But you only have 8 minutes. So you gotta do it. And then somehow make it look like you're just in the moment.
Yeah. Here's one of the things that I really love watching you do when you do serious stuff, Damages.
Mm-hmm.
And
you were phenomenal on Damages too. Let me just jump in and say something. I've already told you this, I think, in the past. There is a scene in the second season, or is it the first season? First season? Second season, where you have had not 2 scotches, not 12 scotches. You've had 4 scotches. And it's specifically a little drunk. It was so spot on perfect.
You did tell me that, and
I
that
know.
meant a lot to me. I do stick you on a pedestal, and I'm desperately trying to not do that in this moment.
Yeah.
But what's amazing about watching you and other people who are incredibly funny, but when you do serious stuff, the threat that you're going to do something bizarrely funny and quirky is always lurking underneath, even though you never do it because that's not what the part calls for. There's a danger inherent in somebody who's brilliantly funny not being funny. And I just found that mesmerizing to watch.
Well, it's interesting. I did third season of Damages with Lily Tomlin.
Right.
And I remember the first day we were shooting, it was supposed to be a deposition. Glenn Close is on one side and I'm Lily's lawyer. She's basically Mrs. Madoff. And I remember Glenn saying, this isn't fair. How am I supposed to get through this? Because it was a very serious scene. But at one point, I think it was Todd Kessler came up to me and said, he was one of the executive producers and writers, and said, Marty, can you but don't smile, because when you smile, you become Martin Short. And I said, well, we have a problem because, the evilest people of the world, Kim Jong-un, smiles.
Yeah.
So it's not about, I think you're stuck with me. And then he said, we did another. He said, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry. But it is that what they found interesting by casting people known for comedy in their series was exactly what you're saying, that underlying layer of, because I always think that a character that you play, no matter how broad it is, if it's Frank or if it's some other, or Clifford, you have to somehow find the reality of those people. Right. And if it looks like you're trying to be funny, then it won't be funny. But if Frank is probably a better example of, there are people like that in the world. And you go and pick up your shirts at the cleaners and that guy is hilarious. And he's not trying to be hilarious. Right. But he's funny.
Right.
Why make life harder than it needs to be? With Consumer Cellular, you get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, but without the cost of Big Wireless.
And switching is easy. And I'm talking to you, Nick, because pretty soon you're going to be switching because these commercials I'm reading are going to convince you to do it. I guarantee it.
I feel myself being convinced.
I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Consumer Cellular is here to serve you with an award-winning team of real human people based entirely in the U.S. There are no activation fees, no hidden costs, and no long-term contracts. They even have partnerships with AARP, USAA, Assurion, and Allstate Roadside Assistance.
Ted, I know you made the switch recently to Consumer Cellular.
I did.
How's the service been since switching?
I can tell you I put it into a test because I live in a canyon and service is, usually drops out like mad. And I haven't had any dropouts. So that's pretty cool.
That's a good stress test, being in a canyon.
Yeah.
Like literally canyon?
Literally.
You're at the bottom of this huge.
Well, not huge, but, big enough to... Are you trying to get me to tell you where I live?
Can you post the address on the screen? Let's get Ted's address up there.
For a limited time, you can sign up with Consumer Cellular and save $50 with promo code TED50.
Visit consumercellular.com/TED50 or call 1-888-FREEDOM and mention promo code TED50.
Terms and conditions apply.
My mind's flicking through all the different things I've seen. Jiminy Glick, to me, I cannot, that's the one thing that I cannot watch you do. And I think I did one with you.
Yes, you did.
And our job was to be slightly befuddled by you, but being straight, and being straight. Not cracking up was the hardest thing. That's an example of you living in a character living in that world.
That was a
so
weird,
thoroughly.
That's the strangest character probably I did, because when I would do Ed Grimley on Saturday Night Live, it was all very written. And must say, and it was all specific. And but Jiminy Glick was all improvised. And I would find myself saying expressions I'd never said in my life. I take great umbrage. And then I'd say, what does that even mean? Where did I hear that once in my life?
And the range, the high octave beginning of the sentence.
Well, and also Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall said, what I love about that character, Marty, is that you've created a character who is as mean as you really are in life.
Who said that?
Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall.
Did you ever interview a politician, Jiminy Glick? Or were they all celebrities?
I think they were all celebrities. And we would shoot, at times 2 10-minute passes, and then we'd edit it all down.
Right.
I remember Alec Baldwin, we did one pass, and then we took a second break, and they adjust a mic or something, and Alex said, ask me about women. And so I said, did you know Dianne Feinstein? And he'd say, oh, listen, when she's banging at your door at 3 a.m, every woman I mentioned, he'd had an affair with. And it was the funniest element.
We do have several things in common. One is Godspell.
Yes. You were in Godspell?
Yes. For a week.
Let me guess who you played. Judas.
Thanks, but no. I was second or fourth clown from the left.
Herb. They had names,
Not yet, because I was at Carnegie Mellon University. Oh my God. John Michael Teblack.
You were in the earliest stages? That's insane.
And it was not just by my... music. I don't sing by myself in a shower. I think must have been beaten in a previous lifetime. I don't sing. And when people sing to me, or I see a nice Western like Oklahoma, all of a sudden the guy with the pistol on his hip starts to sing, it makes me nuts.
Yeah.
So I go into this Godspell moment with a lot of, judgment and all of that. But it was bad. It was really bad.
Well, you should explain, Ted, that Godspell started off as a thesis.
master's
thesis.
Yeah.
So it was Stephen Schwartz
and
John Michael Teblack. Stephen Schwartz, who would go on to do, Pippin and Wicked, et cetera, and brilliant guy. And that was their thesis. And then then they put it on the Cherry Lane Theater.
Yep.
Eventually, and it became this massive hit.
All my friends went with it.
Yeah.
And made a small
Robert
at that
Lamont
moment
and all
fortune.
these- yeah.
Rob.
Yeah, and
Day by
then
day.
in March of '72, they auditioned for the first company that was going to do a national tour because it was such a hit in New York. Now they realized they should do a national tour, and we were going to play Toronto, Boston, and Chicago. But it was such a hit in Toronto, it just stayed in Toronto. And that cast, and Stephen Schwartz was like 24, 25.
Right.
And he cast people who had never done anything.
Who was your Jesus?
Victor Garber.
Victor, yeah.
And Gilda Radner, Andrea Martin, Eugene Levy.
People
Paul
who stayed
Schaefer.
in your life forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's amazing. Stephen Nathan, who went on to be a really well-known writer and does a lot of half-hour writing and stuff, was our Jesus. But here's my deal. About 4 days in, and I was horrible, and it was a mess right up until it kind of gelled the opening night and blew the roof off, and everyone realized this is magnificent. But third day of rehearsal, I got Bell's palsy, which is where you kind of draw a line down your face, and one half of your face.
And it lasts for how long?
Unfortunately, I went to the library and researched it. It's like 87% will come back. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
But so it lasted for me for about 6 weeks.
Wow.
But my reaction to having lost half my face while hoping to become an actor was, oh, thank God I'm out of this turkey. Oh.
Bell's palsy, do they have a shot for that?
No, I think what I did was take cortisone tablets.
No, but I mean a preventative shot.
No,
shingles.
it's like a virus that hits this nerve channel.
No, I know.
neck.
I have a few friends that have had it.
Yeah.
And came back.
Yeah. Well, some don't that we know,
I know.
and who are wonderful actors and all of that.
And then they go into character work.
Yes. Yeah. I had to take my paralyzed size in a smile at night so that it wouldn't sag more. I was married, so it was a real treat for my
you must have been a
wife.
sexy guy.
Yeah, sexy guy. So that was your second audition, right?
My first was for got very hot right at the beginning. I decided to. Eugene Levy talked me into taking a year off university. I'd done 4 years. I was doing a master's in social work, McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. And he talked me into, he said, because we'd done plays together. I'd done a lot of theater. And he said, you should, take a year and try this as an actor. And I was very hesitant because I'd never left the stepping, stones of education. And I thought to myself, well, I must do this so that I can look in the mirror at 50 and I can say, ooh, why didn't you ever try acting? And then you can go, oh yeah, I did try acting and no one hired me. So I could just, so my first audition was a talking Visa card inside a woman's purse, and I got it. It was a commercial. That was in March 17, 1972. I'm a bit of a Rain Man with dates. And then on March 25th, I was at the callback audition. So I'd been called back for Godspell in Toronto at the Masonic Temple. And it was like 400 people. It was like American Idol. They kept whittling it down. And they finally whittled it down to these 10. I remember Gilda got up. I'd never met Gilda. And she was wearing bib overalls and pigtails on either side and sang Zippity Doodah. And I thought, oh, that poor thing. That's the saddest thing. And they went, you're hired. And I went, oh, I got to rethink because I'm singing My Funny Valentine. I could be off on this. But she'd seen the show in New York.
Yeah.
She knew what they were looking for.
And was it dialogue or was it just singing?
Yeah, the first was singing. And then if you made that cut, then you were asked to go off with a group of 7 and improvise a parable, one of the parables. And I luckily, in my group, was Eugene Levy. So he kind of directed and took over because he's a brilliant writer. Right. Took over the whole thing. Marty, no, you do. No, Marty, do Ed Sullivan. And he really, and so we kind of killed our group.
And were you still at McMaster?
Yeah, I still had exams to go. So I had to commute between rehearsals and writing my finals for my 4th year.
How long did that run in Toronto with you in it?
A year. I did a year. The show ran for a year and 3 months or something.
Yeah, it was amazing. It
was a big, big, big hit.
Every high school.
And then, you know Donnie Scardino?
Yes.
He replaced Victor, because Victor right away, within 6 weeks, they cast him as the lead in the movie. So he was now gone.
Right.
And then Don took over.
With my friend David Haskell, who played Judas.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, then Don would later do it in New York.
Right.
Again. Yeah.
But now this wasn't you dabbling and not dabbling, but saying I should give this a try. Isn't out of the blue, because reading the book, you were in your bedroom at an early age.
Oh, I had a full fantasy.
And,
You know, I had contracts, imaginary contracts with NBC. I was allowed to do I had a primetime show in my head on NBC every other week, not every week.
Yeah.
Every other week, so that it left time for my film career, my imaginary film career. I was 14, 15, 16. I would write things up for TV Guide and highlights, and I had an applause tape. So I had the reel-to-reel tape, and I had another tape recorder, and I would sing an opening, songs that weren't nominated, and then I'd click, and I'd hit applause, and ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tony Bennett, and Tony, and I played Tony, and I put them all together. But what was amazing about my childhood was that my mother was a concert violinist. So she was a musician and first female concertmaster of a symphony in North America. And she would adjudicate these things. She would listen. I made an album at 15 called Martin Short Sings of Songs and Loves Ago. And it was basically Sinatra's September of My Years album, but I'd have to sing in his keys. So I'd click, and it'd be the orchestra introduction, Nelson Riddle, click, one time you turn around, because it's too low for me. But my mother, I remember finishing the album, and I still have the notes of her saying, well sung, a little pitchy, 3 stars out of 5. Very nice, lovely melody. There's a different song, So no one was laughing at me. No one was saying, he's nuts.
Siblings? How did they?
My brother Michael, I used to have a rocking chair that the arm always broke, and I had a thing of glue that I'd glue it. And he once said he could be sniffing glue, because he's really, kids are playing, on the street. They're playing road hockey, and I'm in my room going, weather-wise, such a cuckoo day. It's not normal. But it was to me.
Michael, who went on to become...
Michael Short, my God. My brother was a writer for SCTV before I joined it. He's won many Emmys, and then he went on to write everything from Mad TV to Schitt's Creek.
But all right, before you lock yourself in the room and are doing this kind of thing, what was 6, 7, 8, 9 like? Well, I grew up in the country. I jumped on horses and would go play and come back,
Mine was a very, my father was a big executive at the Canadian Steel Company, general sales manager. So he was very Mad Men, the white shirt.
Traveled a lot?
He'd go out west for 5 weeks, but mainly at home. He was Irish, born and raised in Crossmaglen, County Armagh. So he always had his big meal as an executive at the office. And so by 6, he'd come home, and we would eat at 6, but he would sit in the room. There would be a nook over there. He'd sit over here with his gin and ginger, reading the newspaper and criticize us. Marty, don't shovel the food in like an animal, dear. To take it but one time he got up. They can't see, but he got up and stood beside Michael's. Michael, keep eating. I'll make sure the dogs don't get at you. Hilariously sarcastic. And times I would do Glick and think, whoa, who was I? It was channeling Chuck. Oh, boy, yep. But it was very, and summers in Southampton, Ontario, and very kind of...
What is that, on a lake?
On a lake here on beautiful, beautiful beach. And it was kind of great. It was kind of, it was... dinners at the country club. It was kind of that world.
Right. And is it okay to ask, your brother What was his name who passed away?
David.
And you were how old?
I was 12 and he was 26. He was the greatest guy. He was very handsome, looked like Paul Newman. And he was just the coolest, funniest guy. And I remember I was so excited when he would come home from Toronto where he was working, or he was working in Montreal in the last few years of his life. And he would come home and I would be like 6 because he was 14 years older. So I would get into his bed when he'd probably gotten in about 2 hours earlier. And instead of kicking me out like most older brothers would, he would play giant with me so that he would have a pillow under his arm and I would have to steal the pillow from the giant without waking him. And it was his way of just getting a few more hours, you know.
Yeah.
He was a great guy, and he was in a car accident and it devastated our family. Devastated our family. I remember...
And sorry, you were how old when that happened?
12.
12.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember I used to say nightly prayers, Catholic family. And after that, I would never say, "Dear God, and please let me pass my history exam." Because I accepted at that point, there is no way, if there is a God, he's saying you'll survive and you won't. No. Maybe this is an experimental place, and if you get to do well, you go to another level, like, millionaire. But he's not making. So now I would change it. Dear God, give me the strength. Give me the strength to do well in my history exam.
That's pretty smart at an early age to get that right, which is, in my point of view, is right.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. It's impossible,
I remember watching when my mother passed away, she chose to come home instead of being in a hospital with pneumonia and everything. And we had a week of kind of this free off her meds, because why bother? She was coming home to die willingly and joyfully in her mind. And but then the last week, she really started to disappear. And I remember I'd have the night watch because my sister didn't like missing her sleep. So she'd do day, I'd do night. And I remember sitting there when she was no longer really surfacing anymore and going, all of my like reading or my Zen or my whatever spiritual philosophical thing I had studied or dabbled in or whatever went flying out the window. And I was just left with, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
She might be about to, but I don't know. I have no idea. And that's kind of stuck with me.
I hope that she did, that there was some sense of that. You'd like to think.
Yes. I mean, we don't have to get really woo-woo, but
yeah, I know.
But Mary and I have had experiences, some of them led by interesting people, but Mary especially. I think I'm a little thick-headed or something, but Mary has had so many different astounding moments where her father it'd be hard-pressed for you to come up with a different explanation than there was some communication,
Yeah, I've often wondered if it's like the Peter Pan syndrome, that if you believe, therefore it happens. And if you don't believe in it, it doesn't happen.
But isn't that the truth anyway in life? I mean, I'm listening to you talk about you were believing on some level up there in your room at 12 with your, making tapes and stuff. You manifested. You'd have to say that there was something magical about you believing in something to the point that it happened.
Yes, except
Maybe?
But again, when I was doing my show, again, 14, 15, 16, not 16, by 16 there were girls, but 14, 15, I was heavily into my show business world. And I would say that I never thought it was a realistic thing. I never thought, you would think if I'd grown up in Manhattan and I was doing that, or even if you had a kid doing that, you'd say, okay, well, he's off to Tisch, is he? Or he's doing some theater school.
Right.
Because I was in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, it seemed totally unrealistic to be in show business. I never watched Canadian television, so I only watched American television. I watched, NBC, CBS, and ABC through Buffalo. And it was like watching stuff on Neptune. I never thought that I could ever be in show business, so I wanted to be a doctor, you know. And I went into pre-meds only because I still think it's the most admirable profession. And I was a fan of, but I realized when I was in pre-meds that I didn't care about science. I was just a fan of Richard Chamberlain's work and Dr. Kildare, and that wasn't enough to get you there, you know.
But something you must have at least recognized when it did come around with Eugene or wherever, that, oh, this is what brought me joy.
Then I switched from pre-meds to social working. That gave me more time to do. Then I started doing a lot of theater in my third and fourth year at McMaster, and I just adored it. I just loved it so much. So no, it was something but I remember, you know, Gilda and I dated for a couple of years, and I remember being in her house, and Paul Schaefer was the first of our group to go down to New York. And he was doing the Magic Show, playing in the Magic Show. Again, Stephen Schwartz wrote it. And I remember we were both on the phone listening to Paul. And Gilda said, Paul, what are New York actors like? And Paul said, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm prejudiced. I think you guys are just as talented. And we got off the phone thinking, oh, that's so sweet. God bless him, not believing it, because we were in Canada. We just felt, how do we make that? And that was before the massive Canadian invasion.
I was about to say, that was before Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, and then when Saturday Night Live, and suddenly, you know, Danny Aykroyd and all these, and everyone.
And where were they at that point in Canada?
Well,
John Candy.
In 1972, when I did Godspell 72, 73, and now I'm living in Toronto, and I'm in show business, and I don't have to do exams anymore, and I'm not in school anymore. And it was bursting with, Danny was, you know, he was always around, John Candy.
In some formal setting?
Yeah.
What do you mean,
I mean, well,
stand-up or what?
No, I remember Danny was always working on his car. He was going to be a Mountie at one point, a cop. And John, I met later on and then Second City formed a sister company that ended that year in 73 in Toronto. And then all these people, Joe Flaherty and Brian Doyle Murray and the Murray brothers, all these people became part of your world.
Was Belushi there at that point?
I didn't know John. No. He was Chicago Second City.
Oh, right. Sorry.
I met him once, but that was it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. But it was, it was this kind of Paris in the 20s feel of Toronto. And then I met Lorne backstage of Godspell when he saw it. He had
came
a
up
TV.
to Toronto.
He lived in Toronto. He had a very hip CBC show called the Lauren and Hart Terrific Hour. And he was a performer on it and writer. And then he went to Hollywood and wrote, you know, got involved in Laugh-In and then Paul Simon specials and worked for the Phyllis Diller show.
I didn't know that. I always imagined he was some New York guy.
No. He's from Toronto. Forest
Wow.
Hill, yeah. And in fact, the first person he cast, talk about going back to Godspell, the first person he cast for SNL was Gilda Radner.
Makes good sense.
Yeah.
Who else? Do you know the origin of that?
Then he cast Danny Aykroyd, and then he, then it was Chevy and John and Lorraine, and that in brilliant group.
And when did you go to Saturday Night Live?
Well, I then 10 years later, I joined SCTV in 1982, and I did that for 2.5 years, and then went to SNL as a cast member, 84-85 season.
Brought in to save the day.
Brought in with Billy Crystal, Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, Rich Hall.
And almost brought in as a package, right? But was it Don Ohlmeyer or no?
No, it was Dick Ebersol. Dick Ebersol was the Lorne that for 5 years.
Right.
Before Lorne came back. And, I remember getting a call from Bob Tischler, who was his producer I knew, and he said, "We want you to be in Saturday Night Live." And I just finished SCTV, and we just leased a house in LA, and we had a little baby. And I thought, I don't want to do it. I don't. And they said, "Well, we're going after Billy Crystal and Christopher Guest." And I thought, well, call me back if you get them. And then they called back, they're in. And so I was surprised at the press conference. They hadn't announced me yet. And yeah, we launched into it. It was...
Maybe you didn't have carte blanche, but it felt like you guys...
I think we were treated very well.
Because you had 1 year
Because we were
contract.
writers. We had 1 year contracts.
Right.
And Rollins and Joffe had negotiated big salaries for Billy and me, and uniquely, it was really treated, I think Ebersol used to call it the George Steinbrenner year, where you pay a little extra for ball players, give them kind of the contract they want, because they didn't know, this was the 10th season of SNL, if it was going to survive.
Right.
They were not sure. Even the wig department, they rented wigs each season. I mean, it was like, Lorne had done the first 5, and then Jean Doumanian took over from Lorne, and that was a struggle, and Dick Ebersol replaced her. And then they had booming years with Eddie Murphy and Joe Piscopo and the likes. But now they were leaving, and they kind of felt, ooh, this is precarious here. We
Right.
need some ringers. So that was the first time where people had, I mean, I'd done SCTV already. Billy had his own variety show on NBC at that time. Normally, when you start an SNL, and to this day, you've never done anything
Right.
publicly. I mean, as far as the public knows.
Who makes you laugh? Who you
Oh, I'm an easy laugh. I'm an easy laugh. I mean, as a kid, it was Jerry Lewis and Jonathan Winters, Nichols and May, Lucy, Jackie Gleason, Honeymooners, still to this day, I think it's a miracle. Art Carney. And
You were so physical in your comedy.
mhm.
Was there someone you looked up to?
I would say Jerry Lewis and certainly Abbott and Costello.
Yeah.
Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah.
I remember as a 10-year-old seeing a revival in a movie theater. They re-released The Gold Rush with Chaplin. I worked on doing the potato dance as a 10-year-old, with the forks. But through the years, I have worked with the funniest people in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the cast of SCTV. Andrea Martin, Catherine O'Hara, Dave Thomas, Eugene Levy, Rick Moranis,
Yeah.
Joe Flaherty. Insane. John Candy. And then I move on to SNL, and now I'm with Christopher Guest and Billy Crystal and Harry Shearer. I mean, and it just has continued on. And then, let's not leave out a little fella named Steve Martin. These people really make me laugh.
Yeah, me too.
Christopher Guest is the driest of them all, One time he said, I was making a film, Captain Ron. He said, Martin, what is this film about? I said, well, I play a man who has 2 children who inherits a boat. He said, I didn't say spoil it for me.
Yeah, I can never quite tell if Chris is pissed at me, could care less at me, or finds me funny. He is so dry. Yeah.
No one's funnier.
But boy, has he made some of my favorite
Oh, my
movies.
God.
Yeah. I forgot you were in Captain Ron with good friend...
With Kurt.
Who remained friends
Kurt and Goldie. Loved them
throughout
both.
life. Yeah.
So I've been very, very lucky to work with really the funniest people. Albert Brooks. I mean, geez. Never worked with Albert. I just, he's a friend and admirer.
Right.
I'm an admirer.
Larry David.
Oh, Larry. I'm leaving out Larry. I just had dinner with Larry last night. He says hello. We had dinner? Oh, so, yeah. Yeah.
Larry, whose social norm, the trouble with the success of Curb is it allowed Larry to be more Larry. It gave him
Absolutely.
license to be more Larry. I remember going out to dinner, arranging to go out to dinner with him. It was, I don't know, Pete Farrelly, Woody Harrelson, and myself on the Vineyard. Let's meet. It was his idea. It was, Larry's idea. We get there early so we don't keep him waiting. And the maitre d' says, oh, your friend Larry's here. He was finishing up his entree because he had decided that something more interesting for him had come along. Said, hey, great to see you. I'm off. No, forgive me or whatever. Just up and left. That's Larry.
Yeah. Oh, so.
Yeah. You also know that whatever you're doing, it could become fodder for next week's show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, remember he had that little book he'd pull out. If something weird happened at a dinner party, you'd see him just writing something,
Yeah.
That's
and
part of
the
it.
story he told you, you couldn't quite tell whether, was this a real story or are we trying out material?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then his laugh. That's
He
his laugh.
is the most generous laughter.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of stand-ups aren't generous with their laugh.
I guess he's a stand-up. I mean, I met Larry when I was a cast member on SNL. And he was a writer. And he'd write about 3 scenes a week, and they'd never select them. So, and then he got in, it became a Seinfeld episode where he got in a big fight with Dick Ebersol and quit after, at the party, and then walked home and realized, I can't quit, I need money. So he just showed up with money. Hey, everybody. I couldn't believe it. And because it was such a volatile place, no one cared.
Yeah.
Ebersol totally got it. He understood. He didn't care.
That's funny. Didn't he have the reputation of doing stand-up in New York, and if the audience didn't please him or something, he'd say,
"You're idiots."
Yeah, and walk off.
Walk off.
Yeah.
How stupid are you?
Yeah. Can I backtrack to you meeting Nancy? It was Godspell, right?
She was, we had now been running, we opened in June, and there were 2 understudies, and then in October, she had worked with Victor. She had done this show called Canadian Rock Theater, where they basically did Godspell songs and Jesus Christ Superstar, and they had toured the States and worked in Vegas and that kind of thing. Anyway, she auditioned and got in as the understudy. So she was now the understudy to Gilda, who I was now living with.
Right.
And that's when I first met Nancy. And she was so beautiful. She scared us all. Because she had an antique clothing store. And also because she, I think, smuggled in clothes from Buffalo or something. And she would come in, long Joni Mitchell blonde hair, with wearing kind of a velvet cape and sign it. Oh, no one's sick. And she'd sign it, and all the guys, hi Nancy. And that was it. And then about, so that would be like 72. And 74, Gilda and I broke up. We always were breaking up. And
nothing with Nancy,
no
glimmer in your eye, nothing before.
Well, yeah, but I thought she was out of my league.
Right.
And then, and I love Gilda. And then, but we kind of, it seemed like we were kaput. And then the next day I'm at the Pilot restaurant bar, and there was Nancy. And we got talking, and she said, let's play tennis tomorrow. And that was it. I remember Gilda phoning him saying, you're with Nancy, we're supposed to get back together. She said,
right.
Yeah, it was fast. I thought it was like, I'm 24, I'm a single boy. One day, I was single.
What was your wooing technique? Do you make them laugh and then you're in, or?
I remember we played tennis, and Nancy had just broken up with a boyfriend who was a rocker. And I remember at tennis kind of saying, hey, have you ever tried a comedian? Something like that. Not good. And then I remember the first night we made love. We checked into then became the Four Seasons Hotel in Toronto. It was the Hyatt then. And I was 24, and I looked about 16. And Nancy was 21. And no, 22. We were a year and a half apart. And we checked into basically the Four Seasons. I was wearing cut-off jeans and a T-shirt. And Nancy was wearing cut-off jeans and a halter top. And I said, my wife and I would like a room, please. And the guy behind the desk burst out laughing. He just burst out laughing.
That's fantastic. And from that moment on, you were together.
Yeah.
For 30 years? No,
we were together
married.
36. Married 30, lived together 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Never a pack bag, never a, to hell with you. No.
Oh God, what did I read? Nancy asked you something, or it was a moment of you guys were pissed or something.
Yeah.
But you weren't being communicative, so she
said, let me talk to Ed Grimley.
Yes.
Yeah. And because Ed was always...
That was not a bit.
Oh, yeah, no, that was always a bit. We would have fights all the time,
Right.
I remember she'd say, okay, why are you screaming? I said, okay, I'm screaming. Yeah, I'm screaming. But let me ask you something. If you're standing at the edge of a cliff and someone pushes you off the cliff, as you're going down, you go, ah, but isn't it the person who pushed you off the cliff? Isn't it their also fault? But sometimes she always knew that Ed would always be on her side. I'd say, Nan, you're wrong in this. She said, I don't want to talk. Let me talk to Ed. Oh, Miss Nancy, how stupid is he, I must say. He doesn't understand you. And that would diffuse the argument.
But did you also allow that to actually be more truthful? Ed could be more truthful?
No. It was time to...
No, it was a bit.
If it was a real,
right,
real argument, then
it wouldn't happen.
Then it would be discussed. But
Right.
this is now like...
A nice ending.
Like kind of diffusing. Ed would diffuse. He was like Matlock,
Yeah. No, what is that reference? I mean, I know Matlock, but...
Well, I'm thinking of Will Forte when he would... Matlock, who was he? He was always getting the bombs. MacGruber, thank you very much.
MacGruber.
Edit that out, make me sound hipper. Yeah.
So then you were the cute couple, married couple, until when did you decide to have kids?
81.
And what were you doing professionally at that point?
I was in SCTV, 82.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it seemed more settled.
Right.
Yeah.
And your first child?
Catherine.
And
then Oliver.
Right.
And then baby Henry.
Who are now...
They are now... I now have 3 grandsons.
Oh, that's amazing. How old?
Theo will be 4 in January, and then Grayson is 2 and 4 months, and Campbell just turned 2.
It's so amazing. Mary's daughter, Lily, who you know, has 3 granddaughters, 12, 10, and 6.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. It's like I was, 12 years ago, whatever I was, 63 or something. I was just starting to get a smidge grumpy about aging. Just, I'm not crazy about this arthritis or whatever was setting in. And then the first grandchild arrives and it's like, oh, fuck it, I'm in. I don't care anything anymore about my little this and that's. I am so want to be around this. It's so magical.
It's absolutely. And they love you. They love you, these grandkids, because you represent this kind of, I love explaining to my grandkids that, see, Oliver, I'm his dad. Right. And so Papa is, and their eyes go big, Yeah.
And you do get to hand them back. That's a cliche, but it is true. You don't have to be, you're not on the front lines as much as your kids are, which gives you that distance to be almost, I found myself almost like an anthropologist going, oh my God, look at this. Their brains now are able to do this and do that.
Right.
And when you're in it as a father, as a parent, it's just too immediate to have any distance.
Yeah,
but
I know.
It's one of our great joys. And Mary always said, when she tells people how amazing it is to be a grandmother, she can almost see in their eyes, if they're not grandparents yet, well, didn't you enjoy your kids? You're so in love with your grandkids. No, you can love your kids through the roof.
Yeah.
But there's something different and wonderful.
And then I know couples who are just saying, oh my God, I'm just dying to become grandparents. My kids won't have kids yet.
Yeah. I sometimes say, magic wand, what are you going to be doing? What would you like to be doing 5 years from now? You have done so much.
I kind of, I've always led an eclectic career. It's very Canadian.
Meaning what?
Well, I mean, in the sense that you just worked. You could do Shakespeare on CBC in the afternoon, and then do a cabaret show. What's a nice country like you doing in a state like this at night? Or Second City.
There was no right or wrong career-wise.
It was just, do I bring a suit? There was no, is it good for your career? No, I'm in television. No, I'm in film.
Right.
It was just,
much
so
more
it was
English.
Like university. It's like England too.
Yeah.
And so I have continued that, so, I'll go from Broadway to television to film. And it's great because when they don't want you anymore in film, you say, oh, well, then I'll do television. And then they don't watch you in television. Oh, and I'll do Broadway. Oh, they watch you in film again. But it makes for a very interesting career. So my health is very good. In 5 years, I would like to think I'm still doing all this. I don't think actors should retire.
No.
I think I don't know how great retirement is for anyone if they love what they do.
Right.
If you hate your job, then great, retire. But
I'm
Lorne Michaels, for example, is a big believer in not retiring. Phil Hines, who did lighting for, I did a summer series with Maya Rudolph a few years ago. He was in his 93 or something, and he had done SNL from the beginning, and he was still lighting our show.
That's my dream. I want to find out what it's like to be. I am not, stupid comparison, but I am basically an actor, character actor, who's been blessed to be around amazing writers who are very, very funny people. And I can be funny with their amazing funny words if I am on my game. So to say I want to be funny is, talking to you, feels like I want to say I do understand that I'm a character
we're both
actor.
Actors is what we are.
We are. But anyway, I want to know what it's like to be funny at 75, 76. I'm about to turn 76, and I'm about to work with Mike Schur, who did The Good Place.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what that's like. I want the full Monty. I want to know what it's like to do that when I'm 80.
Yeah, I think that if age is such an odd last hurrah of ageism, is the last hurrah that hasn't been broken yet. But if you surround yourself with funny people, I'm good friends with Bill Hader, who could be my son. I'm very good friends with John Mulaney, who could be, my son. But when we're together, there's no sense of age at all.
No. I find myself, I don't compete with my fellow actors. I compete with people in their 30s because I know it's hopeless, but it will amuse me hugely. So I will always try to fuck with John, Krasinski and challenge him to impossible foot races and, whatever.
Yeah.
Just to the joy of being around people younger than you. And you do reach a status, I don't know if you have, where people are starting to take care of me just a little bit. And at first
I haven't reached that point. No one cares less.
I can understand why. But it's like, I can see people going, oh, okay, all right, here, can I help? Let me lift that. And at first it's like that competitive, hey, I'm still in the race here.
Like on an airplane. I'll have you. I'll get that for you, Mr. Schur. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I've eased into it and kind of enjoy it.
See, Martin always says that the time he'd contemplate retiring is when his voice becomes all quivery.
Yes.
Then, that's different. But when you still look and sound like Steve Martin, you're going nowhere.
How are you in public? How are you walking around the world in public with your fame, celebrity?
I've gone through all different phases. Sometimes people would come in, can I have a selfie? I'm sorry, I don't do that. Why? What? Because I don't do
5 minutes later, you're still on the street.
And then I realized, just take the selfie. Hi, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah.
Smile, thank you.
No takes much longer.
Way longer.
Yeah.
And what's it about anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't sneak, how do you travel? Just effortlessly wherever you want?
Private?
Commercial?
No, I'm kidding. I just kind of keep moving.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'll wear like a hat and sunglasses and stuff. And then I'll go to this, say, do you have a New York Times? And my voice gives me away.
Yes, it's the voice.
Yeah, it's the voice.
Yeah. You have an opportunity to have dinner with, hang with, whatever. Who would it be?
I always want to have dinner with Marlon Brando. He's not here,
Why? Just to...
Oh, because he's just to be in that presence of that genius. Would be insane. I'm trying to think. I've been... I had a dinner a couple years ago with the Obamas, and that was like on a wish list that was spectacular.
Did you get past the oh my gosh part and really get to kind of
Yes,
quietly
absolutely,
hang?
yeah. I got to ask him. I remember I asked him at one point, how do you? There's always a fire somewhere in the world. How do you turn that off? How do you do it?
What did he say?
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
And it was a struggle at the beginning,
Yeah.
But that's kind of like a guy that I'll tell you who I knew for 25 years, and I always pinch myself that I can't believe I'm with him in his company, was Mike Nichols.
I read that. Yeah.
That was just
Your
because
first
again,
meeting was
I don't know.
to hire you?
No, I never worked with him. I just knew him socially. And in the 80s, probably the premiere of Three Amigos or something like that. But he was always so funny to me. And again, I'm that 11-year-old listening to Nichols and May on Broadway, or 12. And I've said this before, but it's just, it exactly showed how fast he was. One time we were at an art opening, and he said, "Where are you staying?" I said, "The Essex House." He said, "No, but really." And what I loved about Mike is that that would make him laugh. He knew that was funny.
Yeah. You just mentioned Three Amigos, which
Yeah.
is right up there with one of my favorite funny movies. Where'd you shoot that? In Mexico or no?
No, in Tucson, Arizona, and then Simi Valley.
Right. It was that perfect combination of outrageously silly, funny, and then the bad guys were brilliant.
Brilliant. Well, that was kind of John Landis making it look like the Magnificent Seven, while at the same time. So some of those, and Elmer Bernstein doing the score, bum 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 bum, making it like a big classic.
Yeah.
The 50s movie.
Yeah.
With CinemaScope, but then with Steve's writing. That was written by Steve, Randy Newman, and Lorne.
Wow.
Yeah.
Randy Newman as in dialogue, not...
He came up, I think he came up, Steve might correct me on this, I believe he came up with the Singing Bush, Randy, and wrote those fabulous songs. Arizona moon, keep shining,
Wow, Marty. I really appreciate sitting down with you like this.
It's a delight. I'll do anything. I'll even drive to,
Why did you come do a podcast? You don't have anything you're pitching.
No, it's just you. It was you.
I wish we had gotten to this right away.
No, it's true. You know I adore you, Ted. I have for years.
I do. And I apologize for all the times I have put
ignored
you
me?
too high on a pedestal and did my bullshit, who am I routine. And I have done that too. And it's
first of all,
such a
no one believes
waste.
it. That's what one,
I know, and it's false. It is
totally false.
Totally. Yeah, my false ego is
bullshit. There's a big ego. It's you and Donald. You're right up there together. Interchangeable.
Can we cut that one too?